watching Prime Time. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. Let's take a look at the top headlines this evening. The Monetary Policy Committee maintains status quo on interest rates. A rate hike in FY19 is now a real possibility as the committee warns of higher inflationary risks going forward. Sensex Nifty slip in late trade to register their 7th consecutive down day. Cipla's earning missed estimates as its depreciation costs doubled, while Eicher Motors posts a stable set of numbers in Q3. Royal Enfield sales aid revenue growth. Supreme Court quashes all 88 iron ore mining leases renewed by the Goa government. The order impacts 20 million tons a year in capacity, bulk of which is operated by the Vedanta Group. Prime Minister Modi accuses the UPA government for the NPA mess, says Congress policies put pressure on banks to lend to crony capitalists. And it's all electric at the Auto Expo 2018 in New Delhi. Tata Motors lines up its EV prototype, but it's not alone. Maruti is also keeping pace, so is Renault. And let's not leave TVS Motor behind. All the updates from day one, along with a sneak peek into what the future holds, coming up on Prime Time. But first, let's start with the top story today. The Monetary Policy Committee has kept interest rates unchanged while maintaining a neutral stance on the economy. 5 of the 6 MPC members voted for a status quo on rates. The committee, however, has raised the red flag on inflation, highlighting 6 key risks. This stance also indicates a rate hike in the next fiscal cannot be ruled out.
We also need to be mindful that even as the fiscal deficit has stayed above 3%, inflation has come down to some extent because the fiscal stance starting from 2014 has actually been on a downward trajectory. Secondly, the monetary policy itself has become much more flexible in terms of responding to the inflation risks. So it is not necessary that a 3% target should be achievable by the time that the report said. The report was written in 2014. However, having a fiscal stance that is conducive to achieving the 4% target is important, and significant and postponed deviations from them would make matters more challenging going forward.
Ira Dugal joins us now for more on the monetary policy. Ira, rate hike now seems imminent?
Not imminent. It's somewhere on the horizon. The probability perhaps has risen a little bit, but I'm just going to get to that in a minute. First, lay out what the MPC had to say. There was no change in interest rates. You know that already. There was also no change in stance. By that we mean that they maintained and kept the sentence which said that their monetary policy stance remains neutral. There was a section of the market which was concerned that they may take that out and then lay the road for an interest rate hike. They have not done that, so that came as good news for the markets, and you saw bond yields come off. But if you look at their growth and inflation picture, and it's important to look at both. Firstly, on the inflation side, they have 6 upside risks, but they have also put out some mitigating factors. So the 6 upside risks include HRA, that's the house rent allowance, that is getting built into inflation in a staggered fashion. There's the global growth recovery, which is impacting crude oil and other commodity prices. And then there are, of course, issues on the fiscal front, the MSP front, both of which have been added in after the budget. And then the final factor that they talked about was the higher customs duty. So that's the list of upside risks. On the mitigating side, they said that capacity utilization remains low, so that may keep a sort of a cap on how high inflation, or at least demand-driven inflation, goes from here. And then they also talked about the fact that oil has moved in both directions. So they gave out some mitigating factors. The other important factor to remember is what they have said on growth. Now, growth, of course, they're expecting it to recover to 7.2% GVA growth in the next fiscal. But there was an important comment on growth forth in the MPC statement, where they talked about the fact that the committee is of the view that the nascent recovery needs to be carefully nurtured. Now, some of the economists we spoke to, in particular Shubhra Rao of Yes Bank, made the point that the MPC and the RBI want to give enough room for a pickup in supplies, and that by that I mean pickup in investment and a supply side response, as it's called in monetary policy. So perhaps in giving you a fairly balanced policy where they're highlighting the upside risk to inflation, saying that we don't want to jump the gun and start raising rates just yet, they have given you a fairly mature policy statement and policy view.
What was the key commentary on the government sort of deviating from the path of fiscal consolidation? Because I remember you mentioning before the policy that was something you would be watching out for.
Yes, very strong words, both from the statement of the MPC, but also the press conference that followed, where Urjit Patel made a couple of comments. In the statement, they said that it adds to inflation risk, and everyone sort of knew that they would bring and throw that comment in, given the fact that fiscal consolidation is now being pushed back. In the press conference, Urjit Patel said that there has been fiscal slippage on 3 counts. You haven't met last year's fiscal deficit number, that is the FY18 number. You haven't met the expectation of the market or what the framework suggested for FY19, and you have pushed forward the 3% goal for fiscal deficit all the way to FY21. So he said that there had been fiscal slippage on 3 counts, and he did say that it's going to add to the challenges for monetary policy. Remember, we are now in an inflation targeting framework where fiscal policy has a direct bearing on the MPC's ability to meet its inflation target, which is 4% plus minus 2%. I might add that we have not met that in a durable fashion yet.
All right. Thank you so much, Ira, for all of that analysis. So on the MPC today, now Deputy Governor Viral Acharya said that RBI's liquidity operations are driven by its monetary policy objectives. Acharya also said that it is not RBI's goal to manage the asset markets.
Except in rare, extraordinary, economy-wide circumstances, the goal of RBI's liquidity operations is not to manage directly the prices of any particular long-term asset market. In the present circumstances, economic analysis, including from some of you, has been referring to froth chasing one asset market and there being tight liquidity in another. The resulting asset price and yield implications are therefore unlikely driven by aggregate liquidity conditions, which, as I mentioned, remain in somewhat surplus mode.
Meanwhile, Sajid Chinoy, Chief India Economist at JP Morgan, says that the RBI believes that inflation is not a cause for alarm as yet. However, he also said that RBI could opt for monetary tightening later this year if the variables impacting inflation move in a certain way.
And what the RBI is saying is we see inflation around 4.5 or 4.6%. That is not a cause for alarm, which is why they've kept their stance neutral. Now, remember, this is an inflation targeting central bank. So ultimately what matters is where do they see inflation going? Everything else, the currency, the fiscal deficit, minimum support prices, these are all ingredients. So as of now, I think the central bank doesn't seem alarmed, but I would say 2 or 3 key sources of uncertainty which could push that second half inflation higher if oil prices stay close to 70, if the rupee were to weaken, and if minimum support prices went up. I think right now the RBI is saying is we can't be making policy based on that uncertainty. If these variables move in a way that the second half inflation forecast were to go consistently above 5%, then one cannot rule out monetary tightening later in the year. As of now, they're saying is that's not our baseline view, and so it's not a given that interest rates have to go up anytime soon.
All right, Indian markets have posted losses for the 7th day in a row after the RBI's hawkish tone. Both the Sensex and Nifty posted marginal losses. ONGC was the top gainer, while Bharti Airtel incurred sharp cuts. And let's take a look at US markets. They have opened with sharp cuts today after yesterday's wild trading session. Dow Jones gave away over 100 points at opening. It has recovered significantly since then, as you can see across your screens, up about 2.5% nearly, while the S&P 500 is up about 2%. Across the Atlantic, European markets moved higher after Tuesday's rout. FTSE, CAC and DAX have registered some gains. And Romain Bostic of Bloomberg News joins us now from New York. Romain, how are you? We spoke yesterday when the markets opened and deep in the red. Does it seem like a better day today? What are the cues everyone is watching out for?
Yeah, well, less than 10 minutes into the cash open here. We are doing a little bit better this morning than what we saw yesterday. Stocks still are a bit mixed, but we're not really at those lows that we saw coming out of the gate yesterday morning. Of course, we're not necessarily at the highs that we saw in that late day rally yesterday. Now, we did get a little bit of a preview of what to expect out of the U.S. market today by looking what happened in Asia. I mean, we saw the stocks come out a little bit strong in South Korea, India, Japan, Hong Kong. Of course, none of those markets were able to hold those gains, and we did see a fade late into the day. So we're going to keep an eye on what's going on as we move into the next few hours. Two things we are keeping a very close eye on. Keep an eye on the VIX. Of course, we broke through 50 yesterday. We're back down below 30 today. But keep in mind, even at that level below 30, we're still about 3 times above the daily average of what we've seen over the past year. So still some concerns about that volatility trade and some of the trades that are going to be trying to unwind some of those short vol positions and how that plays into the market moves later today.
All right. Thanks so much, Romain, for joining us and for that update on how the U.S. markets have opened today.
Thank you.
And US-based IT major Cognizant posted a net loss of $18 million for the December quarter on account of one-time provisional income tax expenses of $617 million. The expenses relate to the Tax Reform Act in the US. Cognizant saw its revenue grow 10.6% to $3.83 billion in the fourth quarter of 2017 from $3.46 billion in the period a year ago. Staying with earnings, Cipla's third quarter profits missed estimates as its depreciation costs doubled. Net profit rose 6.9% year-on-year to 400 crore rupees, while revenue rose 11% to 3,914 crore rupees. EBITDA rose 20.9% to 818.6 crore, while EBITDA margins expanded 230 basis points to 20.9%. Cipla received a tax credit of 64.2 crore rupees compared to a tax expense of 128.3 crore in the year ago per quarter. The company's bottom line was impacted by a 103% surge in depreciation costs, which stood at 522 crores.
So every quarter you have to do a test check of whether the carrying values on balance sheet are in line with the fair values that you expect from the future cash flows. So this quarter when we did that check, we realized that for about 3 assets which are in the pipeline category for the acquired intangibles in US, we don't have adequate cover from a future cash flow standpoint. So we have done that impairment. This is about 285 crore. These launches did not benefit on a full quarter basis. So going forward, we do expect these launches to scale up and benefit.
And Eicher Motors' Q3 performance met street estimates. Profits for the auto major grew 24%, while strong sales of its Royal Enfield brand of bikes gave a boost to its top line. Operating profit for the company also increased 22% from the previous quarter. Capacity utilization for Eicher's joint venture with Volvo for commercial vehicles is at 100%, and the management is confident of strong volumes going forward. Eicher also plans to roll out fully electric buses for intra-city travel very soon. Aurobindo Farmers posted a marginal profit growth but fell short of estimates in Q3. Net profit rose a tad under 3% to 595 crores, while revenues rose 11%, beating estimates. EBITDA rose nearly 14%, while margins expanded to 23.7%. Other income rose 26 crore rupees, while tax expenses rose to 34%. The company also paid a one-time charge of 66.4 crore rupees in taxes due to the change in US tax laws. Meanwhile, in a big development for miners, the Supreme Court has decided to reject all iron ore mining renewals given by the Goa government. The order will impact players like Vedanta, who have a big presence in the state. It has also called for fresh tenders on all 88 mines. Arpan Chaturvedi sums up the courtroom action in this report.
Well, the subject matter of this hearing was the mining leases which were renewed in the year 2015. There were 88 mining leases which were renewed as part of that decision, and that was challenged in court by an NGO, Goa Foundation, which sought that all leases would be quashed for alleged irregularities. The court has given a judgment where they have now finally quashed all these mining renewals that were done in the state of Goa. The court said that these were done in undue haste and that not all the relevant relevant materials which should have gone into the consideration while taking this decision were not considered, and that's why of course the court has now said that all these licenses or the leases stands quashed. There will be no further mining activity as through the rights granted by these leases after March 15, which is the last day till when this mining can continue. Apart from that, of course, the court has also said that the government will have to grant these licenses afresh, and of course they had clarified that this will only be a fresh license grants and not the renewals as were done earlier. So this was the crux of the judgment that came on as far as the Goa mining case was concerned in the Supreme Court.
Mahindra Group and the Piramal Group have expressed their interest in buying the whole or parcels of Sahara Group's Ambi Valley project. The project is under liquidation to recover investors' funds from the Subrat Roy-led conglomerate. Lawyer for the official liquidator confirmed the development and said the parties are doing due diligence. The Supreme Court allowed the sale of Ambi Valley in parcels after the official liquidator told the top court that selling the whole property would be difficult. A bench headed by Chief Justice of India, Justice Deepak Mishra, had earlier warned the Sahara Group that it may be held liable for contempt and its chief Subrat Roy may be sent back to jail again if it obstructs the auction process. And some national news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi attacked the Congress party in Parliament today, saying that the country has been suffering due to wrong policies of the UPA governments in the past as well as the Congress. In his reply to motion of thanks on the President's address in Lok Sabha and then Rajya Sabha, Modi said that the bad loan problem has been created by the previous UPA government.
आपके पापों को देखते हुए, जानते हुए, सबूत होते हुए मैंने मौन रखा मेरे देश की भलाई के लिए। आपके आरोप में सहता रहा देश की भलाई के लिए। लेकिन अब बैंकों को हमने आवश्यक ताकत दी है। अब समय आ गया है कि देश के सामने सत्य आना चाहिए। ये एनपीए आपका पाप था और मैं आज इस पवित्र सदन में खड़ा रह करके कह रहा हूं, मैं लोकतंत्र के मंदिर में खड़ा रह करके कहता हूं, हमारी सरकार आने के बाद एक भी ऐसी लोन हमने नहीं दी है जिसको एनपीए की नौबत आई हो।
The Prime Minister also spoke on the bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh in Parliament. Modi said that the new states created during Vajpayee's tenure were done with preparation, while Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated only for political gains and without planning.
चुनाव को ध्यान में रखते हुए हड़बड़ी में संसद के दरवाजे बंद करके सदन ऑर्डर में नहीं था तब भी आंध्र के लोगों की भावनाओं का आदर किए बिना तेलंगाना बनाने के पक्ष में हम भी थे। तेलंगाना आगे बढ़े उसके पक्ष में आज भी हम हैं। लेकिन आंध्र के साथ उस दिन आपने जो बीज बोए, आपने जो चुनाव के लिए हड़बड़ी में किया, ये उसी का नतीजा है कि आज 4 साल के बाद भी समस्याएं सुलझती रहती हैं।
Meanwhile, Congress President Rahul Gandhi responded, saying Prime Minister Modi didn't answer any of the questions put to him in Parliament in that speech.
शायद नरेंद्र मोदी जी भूल गए हैं, वो देश के प्रधानमंत्री हैं, वो विपक्ष के नेता नहीं हैं और उनसे सवाल पूछे जा रहे हैं। राफेल का सवाल पूछा जा रहा है, किसानों के भविष्य का सवाल पूछा जा रहा है, रोजगार का सवाल पूछा जा रहा है, जवाब नहीं दे रहे। तो ठीक है, वो कांग्रेस पार्टी की बात कर रहे हैं, वो ठीक है, उसकी जगह है, मगर ये उसकी जगह नहीं। आप पब्लिक मीटिंग में ये बात करना चाहते हैं, आप करिए, मगर यहां पे आपको देश को जवाब देना है। यहां आपको एक्यूजेशन नहीं लगाने हैं, यहां आपको देश से सवाल नहीं पूछने, यहां आपको देश से जवाब देना है।
Well, one of the questions that the Congress has been asking is about the Rafale deal with France. Earlier this evening, the Ministry of Defense has put out a detailed rejoinder to the questions of why the price of those fighter jets that India is acquiring from France are not being disclosed. We're going to be talking about that story in a bit of detail Up ahead, I'm going to be joined by Ajay Shukla of the Business Standard and Abhijit Iyer Gupta, Senior Fellow at IPCS. Now, it's the first day of the Delhi Auto Show, a biannual event where automakers showcase some of their most ambitious projects for the first time. And at a time when the world's going gaga over electric vehicles, can India be left behind? Almost all automakers either displayed or revealed plans of developing electric vehicles in the near future. But how concrete are these plans? And will electric motorcycles and cars be riding on Indian roads over the next 2 years? Well, Krishanu Mukherjee gets us this special report.
The theme of the Auto Expo 2018 so far has been electric vehicles. While most companies have unveiled some models, some of them have said that they will soon unveil models or have at least unveiled their plans of unveiling models. The theme has been electric vehicles so far, starting from Maruti Suzuki, which said it's going to launch its first electric vehicle in India by 2020.
Reduction of emission, whether it's carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, all of those must be attained. Any technology which helps is good, including electric propulsion.
Going to Hyundai, which unveiled its first, or actually its only commercial electric vehicle in the world, which is the Ioniq sedan.
Electric mobility has been missing in India, although there have been products which have been introduced, but the price actually kept away. Plus, there were the other challenges in terms of infrastructure and all. So when we look at it, definitely India, if you look at it, the future of mobility is electric.
Then there were companies like Renault which said that they were waiting for more clarity from the government side before unveiling or disclosing their plans of electric vehicles. Now, thus far, the Auto Expo, as always, has seen a lot of unveils. Launches aren't common at Auto Expos. Cars are more often than not unveiled at Auto Expos, and we've been seeing that trend going on, with the key theme being electric vehicles.
These are all most environmentally friendly products, and we have invested in these products, and these are concepts what we have displayed here. The ethanol based and electric will be launched soon.
By when, you know, a rough timeline?
Next financial year.
So electric, according to me, is an idea whose time has come. Okay, and going forward, we'll see more of electric. Now, let's examine why electric is not. What are the speed breakers in electric vehicle? I think 3, according to me. First is the cost. Cost of battery is high. It is not affordable as of now. Second is range anxiety. People should know how long it can drive, etc. And third is charging infrastructure.
As an example, we have one from Honda cars lined up right here. And this is an electric sports electric vehicle concept, rather, which we don't know when it'll see the light of day, but that is what is happening here at the Auto Expo. Electric vehicle concepts and commercial models have been unveiled and are being unveiled.
Now, while EVs stole the show on day one, there were other offerings that managed to catch the eye for more than just their swanky looks. Ayush Elvadi and Alex Matthew get us a sneak peek into some of the most innovative models and ideas on display on day one.
Ayush and I have spent a day at the Auto Expo. It's been busy. There have been several launches. We can't tell you about all of them, but we can tell you about some of the coolest concepts here. The one behind me, of course, is the first launch that Maruti Suzuki did today, and that's the design philosophy that it intends to employ from here on out. What Ayush is standing with is perhaps what's more interesting between the two, and I'm going to let him tell you all about it. Ayush?
Definitely the more interesting of the two, because if you're adventurous and you like off-roading, well, then Maruti Suzuki thinks at this Auto Expo that the future is all about FACE. Alex, it's four-wheel drive, autonomous, connected, and electric. Isn't that the theme?
Absolutely. Electric is what everyone's talking about. I can't imagine what an electric car would look like climbing up the face of a mountain.
And that's what this car can do. If this car was, well, from dreams to reality, if it actually made that transformation, well, you can actually switch and actually move from automatic to manual with the touch of the screen we're going to show you. Those are massive wheels for an off-roading experience. And have a look at that screen, Alex. That's out from straight out of a Star Wars or Star Trek movie there.
And don't miss the crystal ball. apparently that can connect all of your devices. It can do a lot of other things with regard to media over there. I don't know exactly what it's going to do, but it does look interesting.
It is. This is definitely one for the future. And well, the Jetsons and all those fancy futuristic movies and cartoons are not too far away. And it's not just here. There's a lot more to show you.
This vehicle is one of two that were showcased by Tata Motors today as concepts. This one is derived from the D8 of the Jaguar Land Rover.
Sounds interesting. The car looks fantastic. We can only hope the concept, well, is a lot like the real thing, and the real thing is a lot like the concept, but it looks spacious on the inside. We'll take you for a quick, well, walkabout. Massive tires. Alex?
So,
I take your point. I take your point now.
You know, essentially, this is what is called the Omega platform. The other one that they showcased is the Alpha platform.
That is for a much smaller car.
Yes. So the Omega platform essentially is going to be what the SUVs that they develop over the course of the next couple of years will be based on.
And this really showcases that finally, something we've all been waiting for, JLR and Tata, well, the synergies are showing in design and the product.
Design philosophy as well.
Well, there's more, and we're going to take you now to a race car, Alex. That, well, Formula E engine in that Batmobile-like car, well, should we take a ride in it?
I don't think they're going to let us take a ride in it. I was just going to say it looks like it's come out straight from a movie, Ayush.
It has, Alex, and I think, well, we missed that bus, but just to let them know what we've all missed out on, 0 to 100 in, what, 4 seconds? 360 horsepower.
I can only imagine how fast it goes.
And all electric.
I don't know. I can barely imagine how fast that would go, but then, look, that's what it's all about. It's a dream.
The Renault Trezor.
It's a concept.
The Renault Trezor is a concept. I wanted to add that as well. And well, it is a dream. And well, we thought we'd live the dream, but now what we'll have to do is hitch a ride and get back home.
Now, quick check on international stories. Bitcoin is trading in the green today after a 7-day rout. As of now, Bitcoin is up 22% and is trading a notch above $8,000. U.S. Senate's softer approach to regulating Bitcoin has led to the uptick. The rival cryptocurrencies have also registered gains, with Ethereum up by 27% and Ripple up 19%. And President Donald Trump said he'd welcome another government shutdown if Democrats refuse to meet his demands for an immigration overhaul. Trump said that the current immigration law contains many loopholes. Trump's remarks come at a time when the lawmakers negotiated a stopgap funding bill to avoid another U.S. government shutdown.
If we don't change the legislation, if we don't get rid of these loopholes where killers are allowed to come into our country and continue to kill gang members, and we're just talking about MS-13, there are many gang members that we don't even mention. If we don't change it, let's have a shutdown. We'll do a shutdown, and it's worth it for our country. I'd love to see a shutdown if we don't get this stuff taken care of.
Former Uber CEO Travis Kalanick took the witness stand in day 2 of the Waymo Uber trial, which is set to last 3 weeks. Uber fights rival Waymo's claims that Kalanick conspired with one of Alphabet's lead engineers to steal critical technology used in Waymo's driverless cars. Eric Newcomer of Bloomberg News tells us what transpired during the trial.
There were, jam sessions with Anthony Lewandowski and sort of conversations about what they were talking about before Uber hired, this self-driving trucking company, Otto, which then brought down, the house of Alphabet on them. So it was sort of what they were talking about. A key part of that was, there were some notes that they were looking for IP, intellectual property. So that's something that was very important. And then this general idea that, Uber was hungry for laser technology, LiDAR, to catch up with Alphabet. That just permeated all the testimony we've seen. So Google is definitely trying to drive home that idea that Uber knew it was behind, 7 years behind starting, and was desperate to catch up when it comes to laser technology.
Now, SpaceX successfully launched the Falcon Heavy rocket in its maiden test. As a test cargo, Falcon sent a cherry red Tesla Roadster sports car outfitted with cameras to capture the views as it orbits around the sun. The successful rocket launch was matched by a simultaneous safe landing of twin reusable boosters. That's all the time we have on Primetime, but Primetime Debate is up next, where we're talking about that Rafale deal, which has become a political hot potato. What are the contours of that deal? Which side has a more feasible argument? We're going to get you both sides of that story after this very short break. Don't go away.